Hey everybody, today I would like to talk about the book I'm reading, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I want to give you guys a quick overview on the first chapter. I had to read it twice to really grasp it and to understand it, so I made some notes here and just thought I'd make a quick video and talk about what I've learned. The first chapter is called Principles and Paradigms, and talks about a couple different things, namely character ethics and personality ethics. It talked a bit about personality ethics being kind of the driving force in today's people, today's answers for success, and how the personality ethic is more of a short-term, more of a band-aid type of fix, whereas the character ethic is much more deep, long-term, working from within, working from the inside out type of approach to success principles. And so I'll give you a few examples of character ethics: integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty. So these are all things that we know and value to be, definitely great character traits and worthwhile character traits. A few examples of personality. The personality ethic would be, let's see here, personality growth, communication skill training, education in the field of influence strategies, and positive thinking. So these are beneficial for success. Obviously, right place, right time. I'd say that they're worthwhile ethics. However, they shouldn't be they're not the primary answer to successful principles. So a paradigm it's the way somebody or a person sees the world, or interprets the world, or interprets life. An example of a paradigm, or an easy way to think about a paradigm, is to think about a map. So say a map of a city. The map shows the street names, the street, how the streets are oriented, the different features of the city. However, the map is not the city itself, it's a picture. So paradigms are like maps. It's the way that we see and interpret the world and our surroundings. There's an exercise in this book here that kind of demonstrates how different people can have different paradigms. And I'll show you that quick. Take a look at this picture here. Then, take a look at this picture and describe what you see. If you're like me, you'll see a young woman, pretty, and dresses fashionably, at least fashionable for a long time ago. Then forget what you saw, forget that picture altogether, and take a look at this picture here. Now, if you'd seen this picture first, what you would probably see is an old woman. Here's her mouth, here's her nose, here's her eye, here's her shawl. So if you saw this picture first, saw the old woman, as you can see it as I described it, and when you see this other picture here that we looked at, then you would probably see the old woman first. However, since we saw this other picture first, it's pretty hard for me to not see the young woman. However, now that I know that there's an old woman in the picture, it's blatantly obvious. It's like, now when I look at this picture, I can't not see the old woman. So this was taken from a exercise at the Harvard Business School, and what the teacher did is he handed out to half the students the first picture, this picture here. The other half got the old woman picture. And he put up on the screen this picture here, and he asked the class, what do you guys see? So obviously half the class saw a young woman, half the class saw an old woman, and they both couldn't understand why the other half didn't see what they saw. So they were coming from different paradigms. So eventually the teacher pointed out the different features of the two different pictures, and then all of a sudden everybody could see both sides. So that's an example of paradigms, and it's an easy way to think about what a paradigm is, and also an easy way to realize that different people see things different ways. So that exercise demonstrates a basic flaw in the personality ethic. I'm going to read you this. It's a quote directly from this book. To try change outward attitudes and behaviors does very little good in the long run if we fail to examine the basic paradigms from which those attitudes and behaviors flow. So, for example, say there's a manager at a store, and he has a staff who is there's high turnover. There's no loyalty. There is, if he's not around, the staff slacks off. Maybe they're even stealing stuff from the store. So obviously it's not going so well. So he wants to fix that. So in approaching it from a principle or a personality ethic, he would read a book on how to effectively manage people. So what would he do? He'd probably he'd probably try and remember their names. He would smile. He would ask about their personal life. He would do these types of things that are essentially quick fixes. So he reads about it and he's like, oh, I can do that. So he starts to implement these practices. However, over the long run, it might work in the short term, but over the long run, his employees will begin to realize that the only reason he's doing that is self-serving, and they'll see through that, and in the long run it won't work. So that is why the personality ethic is not an answer to a successful principle. Let's look at the paradigm shift. Okay, I'm jumping around a bit, but I'm going to try and get it all in here anyway. Paradigm shift. There's a paradigm shift with this picture here. And once everybody saw both sides, there was a paradigm shift. Another example of paradigm shift in our history. We all used to believe that the world was flat. When it was proved that the world was round, then obviously a huge paradigm shift in the way that everybody saw the world. Stephen tells a story when he's riding. Stephen, the author, tells a story when he's riding the subway in New York. Gets on the subway, sits down. Next stop, on gets a man with two kids. The man sits down, closes his eyes, and just kind of drifts away. And then the kids are running around. They're screaming. They're causing a ruckus. They're being a real obnoxious nuisance to everybody in the car. And so Stephen turns to the guy. He gets kind of irritated, as he would, because those kids are being brats. So he turns to the guy and says, hey, your kids are being obnoxious. Maybe why don't you do something about it? So the man opens his eyes, like, oh, I guess I probably should. We just came from the hospital. My wife died an hour ago, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think, and I guess my kids are not too, obviously they're troubled too. So at that moment, Stephen had a paradigm shift. He went from being looking at it from a person of why doesn't this guy control his kids? What's wrong with him? He's obviously this is not working. So, and then paradigm shift. Oh, he saw the reason. Obviously the kids they just lost their mom. The guy just lost his wife. He doesn't know what to think. So a bit of a paradigm shift there. And also you can think that in Stephen's own paradigm, there was probably other people on that car who had their own paradigm, in that they could see that the kids were acting out, they could see that the husband was, something was on his mind, and probably to them, they might have seen before Stephen did that there was an underlying cause, there was a real reason why this was happening, and it wasn't just an ordinary everyday occurrence for this family. So different paradigms, shifting in paradigms, that's how that all works together. I was thinking about my own personal paradigm shift, and if I've, trying to find one that I've had in my past, and one that I came up with is my whole journey in reading this kind of stuff, reading the whole personal development books. And little did I know it, but many years ago, I think it was probably maybe in high school or early 20s, and I read a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. And didn't know it at the time, but that's actually a very powerful and positive, personal growth type book. And it's really just about a seagull who is not like the rest. He wants to fly higher than the rest. He wants to do acrobatics, and he wants to be more than just a seagull. And great book, highly recommended. I really enjoyed it at the time, and ended up reading a few other books by Richard Bach, and they're all great. There's another one called Illusions, Adventures of the Reluctant Messiah, very good as well. And so fast forward to today, and my whole paradigm shift with this is, it wasn't long ago that I thought that the whole self-help section in the bookstore was for people who were, depressed, or I don't know. I kind of looked down on the people that bought and read these types of books. I thought I had it all figured out. I was fairly content in life. I was financially well off enough so that I could take care of myself, and had a few friends, my core group of friends, and was fairly content. But then I started reading these types of books, and really opened my mind to what's possible, and the kind of person I could become. And it's really great stuff. It's completely changed. It was a huge shift in my paradigm, and now I'm actively looking for people who are of the same mindset. I want to surround myself with those types of people. So if you are one of those types of people, send me a message and let's get into a dialogue. Got a good story in here about the principle-centered paradigm. So let's talk about principles, because this first chapter is called Paradigms and Principles. Principles are human. Principles can be described of as laws. So there's something that we all have principles, and we all have different idea of what those principles represent, yet they're all within every single human being. And so examples of principle, or an example of principle, would be fairness. We all have an idea of what is fair and what isn't fair. Another example would be integrity, honesty, human dignity, service, quality, potential, growth, patience, and nurturance. So these are principles. They're natural laws in our society. They exist within all cultures and all people. There's a story in here about a principle-centered paradigm shift. 2 battleships assigned to the training squadron had been at sea on maneuvers in heavy weather for several days. I was serving on the lead battleship and was on watch on the bridge as night fell. The visibility was poor with patchy fog, so the captain remained on the bridge, keeping an eye on all activities. Shortly after dark, the lookout on the wing of the bridge reported light bearing on the starboard bow. "Is it steady or moving astern?" the captain called out. Lookout replied, "Steady, Captain," which meant we were on a dangerous collision course with that ship. The captain then called to the signalman, "Signal that ship. We are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees. Back came a signal. "Advisable for you to change course 20 degrees. The captain said, Send, I'm a captain, change course 20 degrees. I'm a seaman second class, came the reply. You had better change course 20 degrees. By that time the captain was furious. He spat out, Send, I'm a battleship, change course 20 degrees. Back came the flashing light. I'm a lighthouse. We changed course. So the principle that the captain was operating on, I believe there are a couple of principles. He was operating on the principle of fairness. So this book is really about a new level of thinking, and principle-centered, character-based approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness. That which we obtain too easily, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only which gives everything its value. Heaven knows what to put a proper price on its goods. Quote by Thomas Paine. And I'll leave you guys with that. Something, food for thought. Also, I'd like to ask you, in terms of paradigm shifts, have any of you experienced a paradigm shift?